Hello and welcome to Stylish Chats with Creatives. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking to Cameron Rennie. Cameron is based in Edinburgh and is a photographer. I found Cameron through Instagram because he is doing a continuous portrait project of tattooed people, and I saw that you've photographed some of the tattooers who have tattooed me. Got a tongue twister there. Hello.
Yeah, it is. Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you? Are you good?
Yeah, good. It's funny doing this because we just did it a second ago, but through the magic of editing, they won't see that.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. We have a little green room chat. So how did you decide that you were going to do a continuous portrait project, and how did you decide that you were going to pick a certain group of people to photograph?
Good question. I guess so. I bought a camera for the first time about 5-6 years ago now. There's a shop in Edinburgh called Camera Base, and they sell like secondhand film cameras. And at the time, I had a really big group of friends who were like rock climbers because I used to rock climb a lot when I was younger. And a lot of the guys that worked there had film cameras. So I bought a film camera with the intention of taking it on climbing trips and stuff with me. And that never really happened because I was always like just too involved in climbing when I was wherever I was. I'd just forget about it and leave it in my bag. But I did always think that I would do. I started a thing on my Instagram, and it was just my personal page at the time. And I was like, I'm going to do 10 portraits over 10 days because I knew a lot of sort of people that I thought were quite interesting looking. I like people. I just enjoy like social interaction as well. So yeah, I took 10 portraits of 10 people from around Edinburgh. They weren't all tattooers at the time. They were just like random people from around the city. And after I was done with it, I was like, oh, well, that was quite enjoyable. And I changed the name of my Instagram to Continuous Portrait Project. That was 6 years ago. And then through that Instagram, because I just kept doing it after that, there wasn't really like a conscious, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to take pictures of tattooers or something, or tattooed people or whatever. It was just, I really enjoyed taking portraits. I knew that. So I did that for like a year. And then COVID happened. Maybe I did it for like 2 years, and then COVID happened, and I met my partner, and she really believed in like my photography, and she kind of pushed me to try it. At the time, she was doing a tattoo apprenticeship. She's a tattooer, and she just pushed me. She was like, "I think you should try and do this more because you're quite good at it," and maybe like I was working in various shops and, you know, sort of retail jobs and stuff. And a friend of mine had a startup in Edinburgh that was like a cargo bike company.
Oh, cool.
And I ended up doing like sort of 1 day a week with them on the weekends, like doing their social media stuff. By this point, I'd moved on to like a digital camera and I wasn't just shooting film anymore. And then it all kind of snowballed from there because I got that job. I got more photography jobs. And then about a year and a half ago, I had enough clients that I could go, maybe 2 years ago now, actually. I had enough clients that I thought I could go like full time and really have a stab at it. And then when I did that, I, at the same time, just started pushing the project forward more. And I realized that I got the most engagement and the most interest, and I enjoyed the most taking pictures of tattooers because I really am interested in tattooing. It's one of my favorite things. And I just, at the same time that I went full time, I had all this extra time and a bit more money because I was doing a more professional job. So from that moment onwards, I just decided I was going to go to different cities and meet as many different people as possible and just try and push the project forward. I guess that's kind of the origin story.
Yeah, it sounds so cool. Like, what a cool idea.
I probably made that more complicated than it needed to be, but that's basically it.
It's such a cool idea. And I think people are so interesting. And what's that saying of like a photograph can tell 1,000 stories? Is that the right saying?
Probably.
Maybe pulled that out my arse as well.
Yeah.
But like just the photographs I've seen you do of the tattooers that I've been tattooed by as well, you just capture like a little glint in some of their eyes, or, you know, I think it was the
Right.
one of Adam Cornish, and I was like, yeah, I know that he's a bit cheeky, but if you haven't been tattooed by him, and this,
Yeah.
you caught the little like cheekiness through it, and it just, yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah. Well, I think so too. And I was talking to someone recently actually about art and whatever. I can't remember who it was, but I was saying to that person, I was just like, you create art that you want to see. And it just so happened that what I want, like the stuff that I really liked in photography was black and white portraits, and then I also just really like tattoos. So you know, it made complete sense to do that.
I think it's such a cool journey that you've had, where you were just picking up a film camera, kind of had a bit of interest in it. So what did you do before you picked up a camera? Were you always interested in photography, like when you were younger, or is it just
Shall
something
I
that you
give
grew as you
you
got
like
older?
the full story of what's happened to me? Like, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
go for it. Go for it.
yeah, didn't do very well at school at all. Left school, toured in hardcore bands for a long
Wow.
time. Um, so kind of tried to do that between like 18 and 22. And then at 22, sort of fell out of that and was really, I always like just did jobs, like part-time jobs. And I always had like really like hobbies that I was super passionate about. So like I was really into rock climbing for a really long time, got into that and decided I was going to try and become a rock climbing instructor. So like, you know, I always, if I do something, I always kind of take it like as far as it can go.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm just kind of like that. I'm dyslexic and probably ADHD. I'm not going to claim that I am because I've never been tested, but I'm like convinced that I am, and like everyone around me is convinced that I am. So if I get into something, whether it be rock climbing or touring in bands when I was younger or whatever, it's always like I'll try and do it as like I'll take it as far as I can possibly take it. And then it was kind of the same with photography. It was like I kind of realized that I was okay at it and people liked what I was doing once I got round to it. And did the Instagram, people liked that, and then you know really just took it as far as I could take it. And now it's my full time job. You know, like I'm a photographer and a columnist, and you know I do all sorts of different bits and bobs for various different companies, and then the project that I do kind of works as like a rolling advertisement for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what it was. That's like the whole story, but just yeah,
Yeah, I think, do you know what? It's so interesting when people don't follow the traditional life script route into a passion, because
yeah,
it just gives you like a different, I wouldn't say edge, but like you've just got a different experience to bring to that new passion, to bring to that
yeah,
new job. And sometimes I've spoken to a lot of people who went to uni, dropped out, hated it, went to uni, loved it. There was one person that I spoke to who went to uni and basically treated it as a portfolio making experience. And
yeah,
like, that's one hell of an expensive portfolio.
yeah, sure, yeah,
You know, and I think there's so many different ways into creative industries that I don't think it don't have to be linear. It can be any which way you
yeah.
choose.
Like mine's was like fully accidental, I guess. Like I didn't. If you'd asked me 6 years ago what I thought I was going to be doing, you know, 5 years down the line or whatever, I don't think I would have said photographer. I really did just accidentally fall into this and then happened to make choices along the way that got me to where I am now. And I think I did at some point have a clear idea of, right, I'm going to really try and be a photographer or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely, I didn't go to uni. Formal education is completely lost on me. I'm not that guy at all. But I seem to have a knack for being able to, I don't know. Just I can, if I set my mind to something I really want to do, I'll get there, but I'll just play by my rule book rather than like the traditional sense. So I have absolutely no bits of paper to present to anyone that say that I can do the thing that I that I do. I just have to prove it with the photographs or whatever. But the first few like paid jobs that I got as a photographer, I barely had the kit. Like, I had a film camera the first time I got paid to do something, and I've kind of built into it like that. I think there's a really big emphasis with people nowadays. I was literally about to say young people, but I'm 27, so like it's not young people. It's just with people in general. I think there's like a big thing. People kind of think you have to be pro at it before you even do anything. Whereas I just said yes to everything and said yes to things that I definitely couldn't do, and then just sort of made it up when I got there. It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how it went, and it's got me to where I am now. So
I think it's great. I'm the same with the podcast. Like in the green room chat, you said to me, "Oh, you look really professional with your headphones and your microphone," and I said to you, didn't I? Laptop's my husband's that I'm still borrowing.
yeah,
The headphones are my husband's. The microphone's mine, and you just kind of have to. I'm the same as you. I learn by doing, and
yeah.
that's the only way I'm going to get better is if I'm thrown in the deep
Absolutely.
end and just
Yeah.
got to
That's
try
like
it.
exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it as well. Like, you just I learn by doing, or by by practically doing something, and no formal education would have ever taught me this. Like, yeah.
And I actually wonder how often someone gets asked for their uni certificates, because I don't think I'd be able to even put my hand on my BTEC, that's showing my age, my BTEC national diploma certificate,
Yeah.
and B, no one's ever bloody asked for it because I don't give a shit
Yeah.
about what you did 20 years ago.
I mean, I like through photography now, I've done some fairly like high end shoots and stuff that I would consider quite professional, maybe even corporate. I've done work for alcohol companies and whiskey companies, and no one has ever no one has ever been like, oh yeah, what's your higher English grade? Like, you know what I mean? Like it like fully doesn't matter. Like you could. I get quite passionate about like the school thing because I know how bad an experience I had at school, and I was treated badly. I would say I went to like a state school, just like a regular comprehensive school just outside of Edinburgh, and just felt completely let down by it. or I do now. At the time, I think I just felt like everyone was against me. Nowadays, I feel like fairly let down by it because people just, I don't know. The whole thing is just very I don't know, convoluted. And it doesn't matter, like it really doesn't. Like I've done so much stuff since then, and so much stuff specifically with photography now. Yeah, but yeah, I hope it's not as bad as it was for me nowadays. But definitely at school, I was led to believe that I wouldn't be able to do anything. And I think for a long time through my early 20s and then my mid 20s, it like was on my shoulder the entire time that you can't do those things because you don't have the grades. Actually, what you need to do if you want to do something is go out and do the thing. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you want to become a photographer, go and take fucking Sorry, can I swear?
Yeah, of course you can swear.
Yeah, okay. If you want to be a photographer, go and take fucking pictures of people. Like that's like, or take pictures of whatever you want to take pictures of, and if you care about it enough, I think eventually, opportunities will present themselves.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but if I look back at what I was told when I was 16, and I was always creative, always arty, always chatty, just unbelievable that I was always chatty. And the teachers were like, well, if you go and do an art course, basically you'll become a teacher. And I was
Yeah.
like, I cannot imagine me teaching kids. Like, Jesus wept. They'd come out with new swear words, all sorts of stuff. And like,
Yeah.
I just wouldn't be able to do it. But the career I've got now wasn't even really very well known thing. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't have even presented itself at the small town school that I was at, like what were they called, like a business fair or whatever, where
Yeah, like a career day or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. So
Do you know, I don't even remember going to career day. People talk about that quite often, but I don't even know if they had that at my school. I think they
honestly,
were just so shit.
yeah, you weren't missing out on anything.
Yeah. I don't
It
know
was
what
literally,
someone like. What would some careers officers say to 16-year-old me? You know, it's like I wouldn't have taken in anything that they were trying to put down. You know, like yeah,
yeah. And I think
yeah,
they give you so much pressure at that young age, and then like to go and spend loads of money at uni, and actually you're still learning about who you are, and then all of a
yeah.
sudden someone's like, go spunk 40K on a degree that you might not even use. Like,
Not in
what?
Scotland, my friend.
Oh,
Free education up here. You can do whatever you want.
damn it.
Do 6 degrees. Yeah. Well, I know what you mean though. My partner talks about this often because she's a tattooer and she has a fine art degree from Bath Spa, and she fully doesn't need it. Like she always knew she wanted to be a tattooer, but she kind of followed this path through high school and then go to university, get out of the house, go to a different city. And I think that she I'm not putting words in her mouth, but I think that she really enjoyed uni. But I think that the part that she enjoyed was the social aspect and getting out of the small town that she grew up in. I don't think that it really mattered in terms of career. And if anything, it's probably kind of held her back in a way, because if she just went for an apprenticeship when she left school, she might have got one and be 5 years ahead now. I think the whole university thing is like, it's a topic that I find really interesting because it's definitely not for everyone, but it's also something that everyone is guided into doing. But a lot of people would honestly benefit more just from getting out and doing things. And I think as much as I did lots of random stuff growing up, I played in bands, worked in bars, worked as a barista for a long time, eventually ended up working in a bike shop, and then trained as a rock climbing instructor. Like I did loads of stuff and I failed at a lot of it, but it definitely gave me a lot of life experience, like straight out the gate. And you grow up really quick when you go and just tour with a bunch of guys in a van, or I don't know, just go and have adventures and try and do things with your life. I think you grow up quicker than I've got friends that have now, they almost maybe a couple of years ago just came back from uni, like, and
Yeah.
they're literally just coming out of higher education and all they know is higher education, all they know is education rather. And that's a long time. You can come out at 25, you're a fully grown adult and you've never experienced life yet. And I'm not slagging off anyone that goes to uni, because for a lot of people that is the correct thing to do. And I'm sure it stands you in good stead of getting a good job, but certainly not for me.
Yeah, I think my sister's got a degree. I think she's an economist. I couldn't tell you what. I feel like I'm stumbling there because I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But for her, it was great because she needed it to do the job she wanted. And it was like perfect.
Yeah.
But I feel like in less academic careers, I don't actually think you need it as much.
Yeah.
I really don't see the it's like you were saying earlier, it's nice to create art that you enjoy, but actually you're better off going to, I don't know, for in my instance, assisting and making like some money and kind of making connections and kind of learning how to adult.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I get a bit passionate about it, but I tend to I tend to do that with things often. But like I don't know. It just really wasn't for me. But then it's really funny because recently I've actually been in some situations that you're talking about. Your sister needed a degree to do the thing that she wanted to do. A couple of things have happened to me recently that have really, really, like, if I was surprised at what I was doing before, over the last year, I started working for Total Tattoo, who are a tattooing magazine. I write columns for them and I write interviews for them.
That's so
The,
cool.
and so that was like the first like thing where I was like, oh my god, now I'm actually doing something that I genuinely thought you needed a proper like degree to do. And I literally left my high school English class, and the teacher that I tell this story all the time because I think it's really like, I don't know, shocking maybe to some people, I guess, but like I left my high school English class and my on my last day of fourth year, which up here I think is like the one before sixth form for you guys. I don't know.
Oh,
You'd
okay.
have
So
to
like,
you have to convert it. There's like we
yeah,
have different high school years, but at 16 you're allowed to leave school, and I went into my high school English class to hand my books back, and my high school English teacher said to the class, "That is a man that will never do anything with his life."
oh,
As I walked out the class, right? And now I write for a living. Like part of my like living is to write, and that's what my like high school English teacher said to me. And then late, like last year, just at the end of last year, I was invited to do a seminar at Rodine High School, which is like a really fancy private girls only school in Brighton. Um, and that was eye opening as well because that is something I never ever thought I would do. And they invited me. They knew my project. They found my project in the same way you did, like kind of, and they invited me to speak to these kids who were all, I think, between sort of 15 and 18.
oh,
Um,
cool.
and it was really it was interesting. I was shitting myself the whole time, but it was really interesting to do that. And I talked to them about portrait photography and how I got into a similar conversation that we're having just now, just a bit of back and forth. And I tried to make a real emphasis on, look, I came from a school that was rubbish, and I did all this just by going out and trying to do it because I think for them that was super interesting because they're on this very different linear path. That being said, I have to admit that school was very like, I think the teachers there make you feel like you could do anything. And I
Yeah.
think that it's probably, that was a very expensive and private fancy school. So obviously that's not available to everyone or barely anyone, like probably, I don't know the stats, but I can imagine that less than like 10% of the population go to a school like that. But yeah, you can see they really kind of instill confidence into the kids. But I think that it was interesting for them to talk to someone that didn't come up through traditional academia.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially when they're that kind of age, for them to see that no matter where you've come from, you can still do something that you really love. And,
Yeah,
you don't have to follow the same routes that everybody else does. And that's really important, actually. And
yeah.
I am so sorry that your teacher was such an arsehole. That is such an arsehole thing to do.
Yeah. Do you know what? Over the last couple of years, or over the last year, maybe I've been lucky enough to be interviewed by like a few people. Like I was on I've been on some tattooing podcasts. I've been interviewed by magazines, and now I'm doing this. And anytime that I do anything where like anyone can hear it, I tell that story because in my head I'm like, it's kind of like me winning.
Yeah.
Because and also I think it is shocking, and I think that that stuff should be spoken about because realistically, I probably got off quite easy, because fair enough, that stuff was said to me, but I'm the kind of person where it doesn't really, it all went over my head, and at the time I was being told that I was failing and that I wasn't putting effort in because, I mean, I'm 27. We're talking just over like 12, 13 years ago, I was in high school. And I think at the time, dyslexia, ADHD, those kind of things weren't talked about as much as they are now. But I sometimes think I'm quite lucky in a way because I'm the kind of person that came out and I was always of the mentality that I was like, I'll do whatever the fuck I want. I don't know where that confidence comes from, like or whatever, but I seem to have maybe confidence is the wrong word, maybe stupidity is the right word. I was always stupidly under the impression that I was just like, well, I can do, if I want to play in a band, I can do that. Or if I, I always felt confident that I could do things without the bit of paper that says that I can do things. But someone else, if they had been told by their English teacher that's someone that's never going to do anything with their life as they walked out of their last day of school, that might have really fucked them up. Like that could really stay with you. I mean, it's stayed with me, but if anything, it's kind of put like a fire underneath me to do better because I was gonna prove that person wrong. But like for someone else who's not like that, it could be really debilitating.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to say to you, is that maybe by them saying that, you almost stuck two fingers up at them and did whatever you wanted anyway. It's sort of like,
Yeah.
well, bugger you then. I'll do what I want.
I think about that story all the time. Like anytime I get to do something cool, like I get to write for a magazine, that's so cool, or like I get to work these cool jobs doing exactly what I want and things that interest me. It really it does, like I think about it all the time because I'm just giving her the middle finger in my head all the time, all the time. This horrible old English teacher.
Have
But
you ever written her a letter to say like,
do you know, I
hey,
don't
this
even
is
know
what I'm
if she's
doing?
still alive, man. Like, she was really old at the time. But I did actually, I was just talking to someone about this today, actually. I did this month, I went and spoke to my high school. Do you have registration classes in England?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
where you go in and everyone's counted, like, like in
yeah.
the morning. My registration teacher was also my physics teacher at high school. And I had a really hard time at high school. And out of everyone in the school, there's one, like, I wasn't even good at physics, but this one physics teacher just sort of like understood that I was trying hard but not getting anywhere because of, excuse me, because of a disability or because of a learning problem, and I actually went and spoke to her and had coffee that like 2-3 months ago now. It was the first time that I'd seen her since high school, and I was just talking to someone today actually, and I said I was anticipating it being this like sort of formative experience, or maybe not formative experience, but like defining experience maybe, and it totally wasn't. It was actually kind of just depressing because I told her all these stories about like that, like I've just told you about things that have happened to me at school and stuff like that, and she was just like, yeah, that sounds about right. Because she knew all the teachers that I was talking about, and she was like, yeah, a lot of them, they're just like, there's no heart in it for them. They don't care, and they just say things like that. But also, my school was in the middle of like basically just like a massive council estate. So there's a lot. I get that the teachers were up against a lot. I was probably the least of their problems in some ways, but um, yeah, it was just maybe like a little. I thought it was going to be this really nice meetup, and it was lovely to see her, but it just, the stuff that seemed crazy to me and stories that have stuck with me my entire life were kind of just like she thought they were normal. She was just like, yeah, that's the kind of thing that happens. And I was like, hey, it's the kind of thing that happens, but it's also the kind of thing that stuck with me forever. Like, like, I don't know. It's just a bit weird.
Yeah, I see from both sides there, like teaching must be such a hard job, especially
Oh,
if
yeah,
you're
no doubt.
like you say, in a council estate and there's kids that are just not got the best home lives as well, and there's lots of challenges around that. But
Yeah.
also, like, to turn around and say that to a kid,
Yeah, man.
it's just like, I mean, it's literally blown my mind. And I just think,
Yeah.
like, I try and imagine like somebody telling my nephew that, and it just makes me want to
Yeah,
collar
yeah.
them, like,
Well,
just
I always try, and if I get any kind of platform to speak, like if I'm on this show or if I'm getting interviewed or whatever, I always try and talk about it because there's always a chance that someone will listen to this that has been in a similar position or whatever. And I think it's just, it's, it's complete bullshit. You can do whatever you want with your life if you try hard enough and if you really want what you're doing and if you're passionate. You don't need a bit of paper to tell you that you can do those things.
yeah, I agree with you. So, do you mostly shoot portraits in a professional professional. In your working life as well as your continuous portrait project, is it mostly portraits?
No.
Is it a mix of stuff?
So I try and make it actually like a really like clear divide. The portrait project is completely free to everyone that's in it. I've never charged a single person for doing it, but it is curated by me, and it's essentially a hobby, or it started off as a hobby, and now it kind of works as this like rolling advert for me. And I think a lot of people don't even know my name; they just know me as like Continuous Portrait Project. That's almost like my brand.
Yeah.
So I do that for free, and now it also exists within Total Tattoo, the tattooing magazine, which you can find in all good retailers. And every 2 months they give me a double page spread of my work, which is cool.
Cool.
As well as now I do the occasional interview for them and stuff as well. So that's where that exists. It's on my Instagram and it's in Total Tattoo, one of my portraits every 2 months. And then outside of that, I do all sorts of different work. Like today, I was just working, I've been on a retainer for like a year and a half with an oat milk company.
Oh, cool.
So I do all their like it's kind of I would imagine similar to what you do, except I dress it and take pictures. But it's just like a lot of product shots for them, social media content for their Instagram. So I'll like interview cafe owners and stuff, just for like whatever they need. I also work, so I have 3 retainers at the moment. The oat milk company, they're called Bros Oat Milk, and they've been really good to me. I also work for a chain of Irish bars in Scotland called Malone's. And they are like, I do all their social media again. So like if you go on their Instagram feed or their website, they have candids that roll over like every weekend. So I do all of their like event photography basically. It's not club photography, it's more like I try and remain hidden most of the time and just get pictures of people drinking Guinness on the weekends, which is quite good fun and really, really easy. And the people are really nice. And then I've just started next month. I will be, I've already done a few shoots for them, but there's a streetwear brand from Edinburgh called Paradisia. And they're about 6 months old. But they do like sort of clothing that's kind of like Carhartt kind of
cool.
stuff, I guess. It's somewhere around there, like somewhere between like maybe like Carhartt, Stone Island, Represent, those kind of brands, like workwear, but kind of like trendier, edgier for younger people. I do all their like sort of catalog shoots and stuff as well. And then anything else that comes through the door, I'll do. I do a lot of work, obviously, because of my project. I do a lot of work with tattooers. So a lot of times I'll get hired to go and do like a content day. So I shoot video as well. So I'll do like a 90-second video plus like 100 photographs or whatever. And that'll be a day for me. Or I was just doing the same for a new recording studio, recording studio, like where bands would go and record. Like in Edinburgh, there's just a new studio that just opened up. I did all their like opening content. So really, I just do like everything and anything. Actually, the one thing that I do for probably the least for work is portraits. But I kind of like that because it keeps it separate for me.
Yeah.
And my portraits are always like something that I look forward to doing. And I think if I was doing too many portraits for work, I might end up not enjoying it, which is good. Like it keeps it separate. Like I can really clearly define in my head what is me taking photographs for fun and me working, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I do. There's a bunch of stuff that I do, but that's the bulk of it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's similar to most creatives I know. Like a lot of stylists I know are content creators as well, like user generated content. They a lot of people have maybe got like, I've got a prop hire shop on the side that I like just advertise, take stuff with me if needed, do this.
Cool.
You know, lots of people do lots of different things. So it's really nice that you've got like both things that are one thing, but they're separate as well. Like, because it's one passion, separate, and that's really cool.
Yeah, my life is photography and tattooing. Like that's like everything I do revolves around now either photography or tattooing, which is great. Like it's an absolute blessing and a lovely thing to be able to do. I absolutely love what I do for a job. Like it's incredible.
So I've got a question for you, and
Tell me.
depends on what it was, but what's your first tattoo and what's the story behind it?
Oh. So the first tattoo, I've got a lot of tattoos. I'm a big tattoo nerd and collector as well. But I've got, it's still on my leg. I would show you, but my camera has been frozen since I last said that to you. It's just a big picture of my face. So I can't actually see myself. But I have it's a snowflake on my leg. And above and below, it says, "Watch the snow." And the font is from word art, and the snowflake itself is actually from Wingdings. You know, like the keyboard set in Wingdings. And it was done in someone's front room in a village called Trinent, which is like just outside of Edinburgh. And I got it when I was like 16. And the person doing it probably wasn't much more than 16. But I won't cover it over because I kind of like it. It's like it's surrounded by a load of other shit now. I've got like so much, like I have a leg that I just get tattoos from friends or random stuff or joke tattoos or apprentice tattoos, that kind of thing. So I've dedicated one leg to just like whenever I want to get something completely random, I'll just put it on that leg. So now it's buried within loads of other tattoos that are on that leg. But that was my first tattoo, and I don't think I'll ever cover it over. I've covered over other tattoos, but I like that one too much.
That's such a cool story. I love hearing first tattoo stories because I was quite old really when I got my first tattoo.
Right.
I think I was 24, 23, 24.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I was quite basically because I drew myself like a little design, went to the tattoo shop and they were like, obviously it needs straightening. But I got offended because I was like, my work is straight enough, hun.
Of
Like,
course. Yeah.
of course it is. So then I like showed my mum and she literally laughed at me. And she was just like, this is hilarious. Like, why do you think you've got the pain tolerance for a tattoo? A few horrible place tattoos now, as in like on my hand or inside of the thigh or knee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah.
disgusting. I see where she laughed, but I still keep going back for more. So
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, it obviously started the bug for me. I never quite got over it, and I still get tattooed frequently.
Do you have your back done? Have you got back piece?
Do you know, it's the only thing that I don't have done. Pretty much. I'm like, I've got my entire torso, both my arms, my hands, my neck, bits on my head, both legs. I think my back is the only thing left. Like, I mean, I've got spaces, but in terms of like big projects that I could do like something decent on, my back is what's left. And it's partly financial and partly deliberate that I've left it because I want to get something that I really, really like. And the more that I do work with Total Tattoo and the more the project continues to build and grow in popularity, I meet people all the time that are like amazing tattooers, like incredible tattooers. So like I'm glad that I've left it because if I got the back piece that I wanted 5 years ago, I'd be unhappy with it now. You know, like I'm gonna leave it longer, probably until I'm into my 30s. I would think, and I'll just see, you know, when I can finally afford a back piece because it's quite a bit. I mean, any like back piece, you're probably talking about between like 2,000 and 4,000 to do a back piece. I would say, like with most tattooers, and I'd really like to go to someone that I really admire. So I don't know. That's the only thing I don't have done. Have you got your back done?
No, and I'm in a similar quandary of like, I really want my back doing. I've got like one full sleeve and then I've got bits on my other arm. I've got a couple of bits on my torso. One leg is like half done and then the other leg, I've basically got a sleeve and a half and about a leg and a bit done.
Right.
But my back, I'm in the same thing as you. I mean, I'm 36 now and I'm thinking I'd like to get to a point when I'm 40 where I've got the majority of the big bits done.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, who do I pick? Because now I'm same as you. I'm like collecting, and I've got kind of all the meaningful tattoos that I've always wanted. I mean, fuck me, I've got a tractor tattooed on me, so you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love I love stupid and or shit tattoos. They're like my favorite.
I love them too. I've got like a smiling donut and a dog smoking a pipe. Just some funny, funny bits.
I've got a vomiting pink alien on me.
Amazing.
That's probably my favorite. I've got like this really, it's like a weird pink cloud and it's vomiting a rainbow. An apprentice friend of mine did that 6 years ago or something. It's my favorite.
That's incredible. I just love like silly tattoos, and I think like they are supposed to be a piece of artwork, and they're supposed to be fun, and it's kind of like, I try to explain it to somebody about, they hang artwork in their house, and I've just got it on my skin.
Yeah.
Like the same.
I think it's all part of it to me. Like I love the artistry behind it, and even more now because I write about it, and I've met so many people that have taught me about the history and the art and the how much thought goes into tattooing and how much there is to it in general. So I have really massive appreciation of all types of tattooing, but I also equally just really like tattoos that are a bit shit and funny. Like that's like they mean just as much as each other, those two kind of like things. I think all heavily tattooed people will have shit that they just think is funny, as well as like maybe a big amazing piece by XYZ tattooer that they really like.
Yeah, definitely. And like I think when I was younger, there was only like one tattoo shop in my town. And now as I'm older, and with the help of social media, I'm able to find other artists that I would never have been accessible to me when I was younger. And so then it's like made me really select who I want. And because I love chatting, there's only a handful of times where I don't talk, and having my knee tattooed, I was almost crying.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
It's shit. You know what I think? Knees and elbows are both bad, but I always think that it's like it's the bit around the side, like this, that's the worst. Once it's like actually on the ball of your elbow or whatever you call that, that's not too bad. But the closer it gets to that point is really, really bad, and then it's shit. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, knees and elbows are not great.
Look what I did with my elbow. I'm sorry, listeners, you can't see, but I basically went around the edge of it. Then I was getting tattooed by somebody else, and another tattooer came over, and you're chatting about who you've been tattooed by before. And he was like, you literally went for the hardest part around your elbow and not actually on it. And then the same happened on my knee. Harriet, I call her Harriet Heath, and she's not Harriet Heath anymore. Harriet Young. She was tattooing my knee, and it was fine, like near my thigh. And then when she was like going on the edge before the actual kneecap, I was like, "Oh, this is disgusting."
It's totally the worst. Like the bit, excuse me, I'm yawning. I'm not tired. I don't know why I'm doing that. The bit like up to your kneecap, like right until it's on your kneecap, is like way worse than actually being on your kneecap.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, like it's funny because you like go through it, and I don't know if you can see mine, but like both my elbows are like rhino skin now, and like the tattoo is kind of gone, like because your skin is just so thick, so you kind of just go through the pain of it for it all to like fall out of your elbow anyway.
Yeah,
which is kind of sad. But
I think my other half's is the same, like on his elbow. I think that's part of the reason why I didn't do my actual elbow, because mine is like rhino skin. You could shave that and it'd look like parmesan. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a bit minging.
Yeah, mine are exactly the same. It's not the easy, and I don't think it's the easiest place to tattoo either. My partner did this one recently, and I remember her saying that like getting into that skin on my elbow was like really difficult. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
What's your favourite tattoo that you've got?
Of mine? Oh, that's difficult. I've got a lot, and it changes all the time because I get stuff done quite a lot. Can I give you my favorite and the most meaningful? How
Yeah,
about that?
yeah.
Right. So the most meaningful, which I think will be interesting for the podcast, is again my screen is frozen, so I don't know if you can see this. That one there.
Oh,
You
I
see
can
that?
see you. Yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
it's got like a
It says
thistle and a.
yeah. It's a thistle and some like a broadsword and a Scottish flag. And it's in really bright and bold colours, and it says Scotland the Brave on it.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but it was done basically last year. There was a tattooer from Edinburgh um, called Bill Hooper, and he had been tattooing on a street called Leith Walk, which is like one of the main streets in Edinburgh, and he had a shop there for 50 years. And he unfortunately last year got, well, I don't know how long the illness had been going on for, but he had stage 4 cancer, lung cancer. And his family contacted me to ask if I could take his portraits as like a sort of like his final couple of weeks in the shop. And I had been put like Bill Hooper was a guy that I'd known of for like a really long time. He had a notorious kind of tough guy bravado. Like it was a no nonsense, proper like working class, hard tattoo shop. And I just always assumed that he probably wouldn't want his portrait taken. And then his family, his daughter actually, his stepdaughter contacted me and got me to go and take portraits. And they wanted to pay me, but I wasn't really keen to take money on it because it was for the portrait project, and now the photos have been used for a couple of books and stuff on his life. But initially, it was for the portrait project. But I didn't want to take any money. But I was like, if you could convince him to tattoo me, I would like that would be amazing. And I was like, and I've got, if you want to donate something, I've got like, donation pot or whatever. So they convinced him to tattoo me, and I got that, and I just went in. He had loads of flash on the walls. It was like a proper old boy shop, and I just went and picked that one, and I think that's probably my favorite tattoo. But I love how it looks, but it's not. It's maybe not the most like technically brilliant tattoo in the world. It's very like proper like sailor's tattoo,
Yeah.
but it means so much to me because it was a really cool experience. And I, up until that tattoo, like I don't know if I've ever had a tattoo by someone who's not with us anymore. And there's the day that I heard that he passed away, I looked at it and it just represented something completely different because it was like, it's literally a piece of history now.
Yeah.
Like, and you couldn't get one of those if you really, even if you wanted to now, like, so it means a lot more to me. And yeah, it really means a lot to me. So that's probably my favorite tattoo. But then, technically, probably my favorite tattoo is I just got my stomach done last summer by a lady called Danielle Rose, she is quite a. I was about to say she's a big deal. She is a big deal, but she's like quite a well-known tattooer from Dundee in Scotland. And she did a set of Pharaoh's horses on my stomach, which I really like. And I've got loads of tattoos that I love, but I think off the top of my head, that's like probably the two that I like the most.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm the same as you. I get a new one and I'm like, oh, that's my favorite. And then I get another one, and then there'll always be ones similar to you. There'll always be ones that mean a lot to me. Like I've got my wedding flowers on my shoulder cap, and like the tractor is my granddad's tractor, and like I've got
nice.
like bits of I've got a piece of my other half's nan's jewelry tattooed on me.
Cool.
And like the rose next to it. So there's a funny story about the rose, actually. So the rose only bloomed once she passed, and then it didn't bloom again till his granddad passed away 4 years later. So we were like, what?
Yeah. That's lovely.
Yeah, weird, isn't it, how the universe works? Yeah. But so you have like meaningful ones, and then like I say, I've got a dog smoking a pipe.
Yeah. I mean, I've got loads of stuff, and then also because of the project growing, and a lot of times people, I do, as I've said, I do everything for free. No one gets charged. I stay on people's couches. It's not like it's definitely, I'm not like, what am I trying to say? You maybe cut this down to make it quicker, but like it's not the continuous portrait project is not my profession. It's everything else that people don't see that's my profession. But the project only runs because I go on the goodwill of people, and I stay with people who are lovely enough to like let me stay at their flat on their couch or whatever. And a lot of times I'll go and meet with someone, have coffee with them, chat to them, take their portraits, and we spend a couple hours together, and then like I'll get offered a tattoo. You know, like that happens a lot. And I don't feel too bad taking them if people offer, because obviously I do the whole thing just for whatever and for the love of tattooing as well. So I've been very, very fortunate to be gifted tattoos by a lot of really talented tattooers. I was just in Manchester and I got tattooed by both Dan and Steve that work at Rambo's, which is like a, I got tattooed by both of them. When I was in Leeds just recently, I got tattooed by Abby Tong.
It's been here,
nice. Yeah. But yeah, like she tattooed me when I was there, and like, I'm lucky to have been tattooed by my partner a couple of times, and some of the tattoos she's done on me have been really meaningful, as well as like the studio that she works at. The guys that work there are almost like a surrogate family for me in a lot of ways. So like I've been tattooed there a bunch by her bosses and the people that she learned off of. So like, yeah, it's just, I think it's one of those things. You see people who are like super heavily tattooed when you're a kid and you're like, how on earth do they get that tattooed? And actually it's because the more and more into the industry you get, the less you actually have to pay for tattoos. And you can and also because of what I do, sometimes, people will be like, oh, I'll swap you, like a tattoo for like a bunch of photographs. Although I try not to let myself do that too much, because I would end up never getting paid. I would just be really heavily tattooed but super poor. So yeah, I try to not take them. But occasionally, like, I'll go to someone for a tattoo and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm happy to do it for you, but could you just film this thing and then we'll call it quits, or like, what, that kind of stuff. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice, that's quite an old school exchange of services, isn't it? It's quite cool.
I think photography, in like tattooing or like a lot of creative careers, is actually a really good thing. Like I've got some really cool stuff out of like trades. Like sometimes people will just say, well, I won't charge you, but can you just photograph this or like whatever? And I really enjoy doing that if that's something that's on the table, because it's just more enjoyable, isn't it? You both get something out of it that you like, and you made use of each other's skill set or whatever. So yeah, it's nice like that.
Yeah, I think it's a cool thing. I like it. I'm like always down for trades and like what can we do to help each other, and sometimes it gives you a cool story as well, especially if like yourself, you're going to take portraits anyway and someone's like, absolutely. Do you want some tattoos while you're here?
Yeah, right. Also then. Like it feels like I'm taking, and I get a bit I'm a pretty soppy, empathetic person, I would say. So like I get quite emotional with stuff like that. Like I feel like I've taken a part of that person away with me. And I think that tattooing, like there's like a lot of people just see tattooing for what it is. It's drawings on skin, right? But like I have some tattoos that I will look at in 50 years time, God willing, like 50 years time if I'm still here. And I'll look at them and I'll be like, I remember that was done by Stephen Byrne at Rambo's when I was 27 and I was traveling around the UK making friends and taking photographs. And that's like an amazing thing. It's not just the design. Like he did the ship recently. It's a blast over. But it's not even about the ship or the design or the tattoo. It's more about like that I was there and I did that. And that's really cool to me. Like the thing that Abby did on me, it was like, I'm not sure. Do you know her at all?
So I know her work, and I've been tattooed in that studio by somebody else.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, like if you ever meet her, she's like a very warm, lovely person. And like, it felt like, like it's a little tattoo, but it almost felt like like giving someone a little bit of love. Like, like it's what it feels like. And when I leave somewhere with a tattoo, especially someone that I've managed to make like a good connection with or be like really friendly with, and then I can look at my arm, because I don't see a lot of these people often, because I travel around and I make friends while I'm there, and then I'm on to the next place because I'm trying to build up this wealth of work. But I can always look down and see tattoos that were done by people while I've been away, and I'm like, oh, that was cool, like, and you can look at it and you feel a little bit of that love and that connection that you had with someone whilst you were with them.
Yeah. I have the same. So I look at some tattoos. Actually, my first tattoo was on my ribs, and that's quite a funny story. But I look at that, and now it reminds me of the story. And basically, my other half came with me, and it says, people who know me really well know that this is a ridiculous saying for me to have tattooed on me, but it says patience is a virtue, and I'm the least patient person there is in the whole fucking world,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So when you're getting your ribs done, you've got, I laid on my side and my arm was over, but my fingers were in my mouth. I was biting my fingers because obviously it hurts on your ribs, it's minging. And my other half was watching the rugby on his phone. And then I remember Lee just saying to me like, "Oh, you're right." And I was like, "Yeah, we nearly done." And I'm forgetting part of this story now. And my other half was like, "Oh, just get on with it," or something. And I was like, "Oh, you're such a cunt," and said like, drop the C-bomb in the studio, and everyone stopped their stuff and just started laughing that we were having backwards and forwards while I'm like, boob out half naked with my like, getting this tattoo that says patience is a virtue. That was it. He said to me, patience is a virtue. And I was like, oh, fuck off, you dick.
Yeah.
And, and I just think there's always that. And then like, I look back at the ones that Polly did for me on my sleeve, and I think like, oh, I remember that. And like my hand, I remember her doing my hand, and hands are also another minging place. I remember I sat so well with that hand, but the rest of me was so clenched, and my shoulder was going up. My arse was clenched so much as I'd done like 5,000 squats, and I was sweating. And she was like, "You're sitting so well," and I was literally like sweat dripping down me. And then I got up and I was like, "Why does my arse hurt?" And it's because I'd been clenched so tight.
Which Polly was that?
Polly Taylor at Crybaby.
Which city is that?
Sheffield,
right? Okay. I was about to say I'm photographing someone next week who's called Polly Tattooer, but they're from Liverpool. So I was just wondering if it was a crossover. But there's probably a million people that tattoo called Polly. But I was like, this is perfect.
I've only been tattooed in Liverpool once by Rachel Baldwin.
Yeah, I'm photographing her when I go. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good fun day as well. It's a nice studio down there.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, so I'm going there to photograph Rachel and Nick Baldwin, and then also Anne-Marie Stram and Monami Frost are going to have their picture taken. But I don't know. Do you know who Monami Frost is?
I don't know whether I do. I don't know whether I do.
Her partner, Henri, I might be pronouncing that wrong. I hope he doesn't listen to this. She was like a sort of very successful Instagram model, and then she also had like a brand called Frost Streetwear, and she had vegan burger restaurants at one point.
Oh, I do know the vegan burger restaurant because Rachel told me about it.
Yeah. So like but when I was growing up, she was like on the front of magazines and stuff, and I was like a really big fan of her. And then I think that probably the first like tattooer that I was ever aware of, because I always liked tattooing, but I didn't think about it as like something where there were like different styles and different people and whatever until much later on. But I think that he was probably the first person that I ever like really was like, oh, I like his style, and like knew him by name. So I'm going to photograph them next week, and I'm going to tell them that, because, if you could trace back the people that sort of influenced you or whatever, they definitely, when I was like 16, 17, 18, influenced my like interest in tattooing massively. So that'll be really cool. But yeah, I've only ever been to Liverpool once, and it was while I was playing in a band, and I really just saw the venue. So I'm gonna say that I've never really been there. So I'm looking forward to going.
Yeah, it's a friendly city. I enjoy it. I've worked there a little bit, and then my friend lives over there. And then the day actually I got my tattoo from Rachel, I went to meet my friend for dinner, and I she goes to me, I've got some pictures to show you, and they were like she goes, oh, they're a bit pixelated. And that's how she announced that she was pregnant to me with twins, and we'd known each other
Ah,
like 10 years. And I was like, crying my eyes out, like just
that's
like,
nice though.
yeah, it was so nice. So there's memories attached to
Yeah,
all
man.
your tattoos, and
I talk about it all the time. Like tattooing is so much more than just, like I said, at the very base of it is pictures on skin. But like to me and to thousands and thousands of other people up and down the country, it's so much more than that, and it's deep rooted. You know, it's a really deep rooted thing, and I love it.
yeah,
Which is
same.
why I take pictures of it.
Yeah, I need more well, I need to earn a bit more money to go and get some more tattoos. Let's put it that
Don't
way.
we all?
Yeah. But I really like going, and probably the same as you do when you're photographing tattooers, and I like finding out their stories and like just chatting. And
Yeah,
like I say, it's rare that I shut up when I'm getting tattooed. If
yeah,
if I do shut up
me
when I'm
too.
being tattooed, it hurts, you know.
Yeah, for sure. The chat is like the biggest part of it for me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like I said, I'll just go back down that rabbit hole if I start talking about that again. But even like getting tattooed, it's like it's so much more about the experience than the actual tattoo for me. I'm happy with, as long as the quality of tattooing is good, I'm like happy to get whatever the artist suggests, and I'm just like, give me something that you want to do, let's have a chat. Like, like that's like it's like therapy for a lot of people. And I think with
Yeah.
with my photographs of tattooers as well, I try and make sure that it's less about the actual tattoos themselves and more about just the person. So if you scroll through my Instagram, you won't find a single picture just of a tattoo, or there you won't even find pictures of the people's artwork. There's always links to the pages, but it's about them as people, not about the tattoos that they do, which I think makes it a little bit different to like some other tattoo related photography pages.
Yeah, because I think there's a reason why people tattoo like they do, and it's down to their personalities, their interests, and the things that they like to tattoo. Going back to what we were saying about creating art that you enjoy, they're creating
Yeah.
art that they enjoy too.
It's also just an industry of absolute weirdos.
Yeah.
Like in the nicest way possible, and I mean that the most respectful way possible. But I've found tattooing and I found that kind of subculture really comfortable to get into when I was younger, because I felt like everyone sort of had the same struggles that I did. And I think that it was that's a big part of why I really enjoy interviewing and meeting with tattooers and then photographing them, because I meet people all the time that I feel like could have been like a long lost brother or sister. Like it's a really, I don't know, just the people are incredible. So yeah, if people ask, I always try and say like it's not actually about tattooing; it's about people. It's just that the focus group happens to be tattooers.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. My industry is full of weirdos too, and
Yeah,
love them all. And then when you walk in a tattoo studio, and I think I was saying this to Josh actually, Josh Kent, that like I walked into his place and I was getting a piece done on my leg, and I feel like the only other place acceptable to strip down to your pants in front of other people is like, I don't know, in a beautician's or at the
yeah.
swimming pool while you're getting
The swimming
changed.
pool. Yeah,
Yeah, like, and then
yeah,
you just stood there, and then also you'll be laid down getting a tattoo, and then someone will come over. Like when Harriet was doing my knee, Dan came over and was like, "Oh, I like that, I like that, I like that," like pointing at
yeah,
tattoos on
yeah,
me. And then he's like, "Where'd you get that done?" And
yeah. I love that. Yeah,
it's just a nice community. I think. I don't think I've had a bad experience.
yeah. I think on the whole, tattooers, and it's funny because like it goes against the general image of tattooers, especially in like, excuse me, there's a yawn again. I didn't read it. It goes against the general sort of view of people my parents' age or whatever is like, tattooers to me are the nicest people ever. And if I was stuck in a shit situation, I'd far quicker go to a tattooer friend or a heavily tattooed person than I would a non-tattooed person, maybe. Like, as I said that statement, I was like, I'm not sure how true this is. Like, if I was stuck on the side of the road, I wouldn't wait for a tattooed person to go past. That's not what I mean. But like, tattooed people are the best people, is what I'm saying. Like, I love tattooing, and I think that the people involved with it are generally really, really nice.
Yeah. And I think perceptions, like you say, I think perceptions are of tattooed people. Some of the older generation are very much like, my other half's been kicked out of a bookshop, an independent bookshop, because
Really?
the woman was like, we don't like the looks of you in like.
Really? I've
Yeah.
never had anything like that.
I mean, like, he's 6'3" and he's got a skinhead and tattoos, and then she was just like, don't like the signs of you in here, and he was just like, I'm literally about to buy a book. Like, if you actually spoke to me 5 minutes, you'd realize that I'm not about to like just ride into your shop in a Harley and just steal everything. You know, I'm not part of a different culture.
There's a little bit of generational leeway, I think. Yeah. Like, I think sometimes old people above 70, I would say, are pretty weird about it, but also it meant something different in their day and age.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like, well, it's funny, my grandma looks at mine and she's just like, oh, another one, rolls her eyes, you know, and she's 83, something like that. But I think that helps. My cousin's boyfriend is a tattoo artist, so she was a bit more used to them before. I'm glad she can't read the Hail Satan one that I've got, that's like a little bunny with a little heart, and it's like the writing's really small on it. But I do think perceptions have changed a lot. And like, my mum and dad aren't tattooed at all, and my dad didn't really like them initially, but now he just rolls his eyes and like, whatever.
Yeah. My dad, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling you this, but like, I remember getting, you know, screamed at for having tattoos when I was younger. And my dad, I remember I got my hand done, the first hand done, and came home and he wasn't impressed with that. But actually, bless him, he now buys Total Tattoo every 2 months when it comes out, reads the entire magazine, and then when me and my partner go and visit the house for dinner or whatever to see my parents, he'll like whap out some like mad tattoo knowledge. It makes me so happy. He's not got a tattoo. I'm still working on that. But both him and my mum has a tattoo. But they both like are really quite interested in tattooing now, I would say, and they know all the different styles and they can talk about tattooing. Like, if they walked into a tattoo shop, they could have a coherent conversation with like tattoo artists about tattooing, even though they don't have any themselves, except my mum, who has one. But I think even just their perception of it over the years, and I think after seeing me get into a career that I'm happy with, and also my partner Freya be a really professional tattoo artist who is like flying the flag for tattooing in the best possible way, because she's as professional and as professional and talented as you could be. I think their perception of it has completely changed now.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right. It's the perception of it, and like the generational perception is different, and culturally it's different. And, you know, like, there was a kind of thing of like, oh, are people going to be disappointed? This is my own personal thing. Are people going to be disappointed if I've got a tattoo, or, you know, and actually, like, no one gives a shit if I've got a tattoo. None of my family care, really.
I mean, if it's underneath your sleeves, especially, like, it doesn't fucking matter anymore. But like, I definitely still think that people, if they're getting tattooed on their hands or their neck or their face, you know, you should really think about what you're wanting to do with the rest of your life first. And then if if you've asked yourself all the relevant questions and you still want to get it, then you should definitely get it. But like, you should be aware that it does have like there are implications that come with like hand tattoos and neck tattoos. And as much as I'm around a scene of people that are constantly like throwing tattooing in my face, my dad always says to me when I see him, he's like, you have to remember that that is literally just your crowd, if you know what I mean. Like you have like this microclimate of people that you see all the time, this like what do you call it,
Like an echo chamber.
like a sample group or whatever, you know, like. But he's like, but it's not normal to have your neck tattooed. Like, and he is right, you know, like, but I think it's generally getting better.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think like quite a lot in my studios and stuff have tattoos, and I get compliments on my like leopard on my hand.
Yeah,
And I thought about it for quite some time because I was like, if I'm getting my sleeve done, it's there anyway. I'm gonna want my hand done at some point, so it may as well be by Polly, who's already done the rest of my sleeve. It may as well be at the same time.
yeah,
And I knew that I was always going to do something creative anyway. So I knew my appearance matters, but I'm not a lawyer. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I don't have to be as professional and as like suited and booted as others.
yeah. Do you know, I've talked about this before to friends and stuff as well. I think being heavily tattooed almost like spurred me on even more to be like a professional and to work for myself. And I take it as a bit of a challenge sometimes because like I'll go into a situation and I'm like, right, well, these people, they, especially if I'm working with like a corporate company or something a bit more like high street, a bit more straight laced, I sometimes go into it and I'm like, you're starting off on the back foot anyway. So we're going to have to try like so hard. I'm going to have to try so hard. And like in social situations, it sometimes gets me amped up because I buzz off the fact that like if I can like win someone over, and you know, yeah, I don't know. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm aware that I'm a super heavily tattooed person, but that doesn't stop me from being the professional that you need to do the work for you. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I buzz off it like if I get the job, especially with like a more corporate thing like that. If I get the job and then I can turn up and I'm super heavily tattooed, but I'm doing this thing that generally people who aren't super heavily tattooed do, like that, I buzz off that, and I think it's really cool. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but there's
Yeah, it does. Because I lean into it now because I overheard someone being like, oh, what's her name? The chatty tattooed one. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I lean well into it now because I'm like,
yeah,
that's who I am. And there's other stylists I know who are more heavily tattooed than me. And,
yeah,
you know, and I just think someone else has created this brand for me. So thanks. I've not had to do any work for that. And
yeah,
everyone knows who I am. So it's kind of a bit of for me, it's almost like is it a USP, like unique selling
yeah,
point, really? Because it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
she can come in and do the job. And also I've got quite a bit of patience, up to about 3.5 hours of tattooing before I'm ready to
Yeah.
have enough.
Yeah, I'm about that as well, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for instance, that the school that I went and spoke at, it was really cool for me to walk in there as like a heavily tattooed guy and to show these kids that like you can be heavily tattooed, you can be professional, and you can be really good at what you do, all wrapped up into one. They're not like tattooing and like failure aren't mutually exclusive. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you can be heavily tattooed and you can still be very professional and you can still do all the rest of it. And there are loads of people that are really flying the flag for that as well. I think that the one that stands out in my head at the moment is Dr. Matt Lauder, who is the head of, oh, I got to get this right. He is head of history at Essex University. You might want to fact check this, but he's head of history at Essex University. Um, he's also got a best-selling novel out, author, and he is like very heavily tattooed. He's got facial tattoos. He's got his hands tattooed, his neck tattooed, his top of his head's tattooed now, and he is like a very well-respected academic scholar. Like, And he was just on a program with Tony Robinson talking about tattooing really recently. So like there are loads of people out there who do very academic jobs or are involved in academia who are heavily tattooed. I'm not saying what I'm doing is academic, obviously it's not, but it is a professional job. And I just think it's really cool that there are so many people out there now who are doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think like before we know it, I think we'll see people in courtrooms and like, lawyers, and we'll see more
Yeah,
corporate people
there's an
with.
Australian member of parliament who has her hands and neck tattooed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I keep seeing it on she comes up on like my Instagram Reels feed, but I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But yeah, that's another one to look up. She's great.
I just
I
think
think
it's so cool. It's so cool that people are like feel comfortable to show off their artwork now as well, and like the journey of tattooing has changed, and
yeah.
it's so cool to be part of that too.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And to try and push that on as a group is like a really good thing.
Yeah, massively. I think like my other half, he got a piece on his neck similar to where your one by
Nice.
Abby is,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's got like all sorts. He's got like a horror sleeve, which actually in the middle of the night when he got it, I woke up and he was cuddling me, and I was like, ah, because there was like a
yeah.
zombie on his sleeve, and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
that's not who I was expecting. But he's a truck driver now, and he turned up to work with his new neck piece, and the
Yeah.
old school kind of manager was like, what the bloody hell is that? And he went, I've got my hands, both sleeves, my
Yeah.
fingers, half my legs. Like,
Yeah.
what is one like? Just because it's on my neck, why does that make
Yeah,
any
yeah,
difference? I've got the rest of it. And
yeah,
so he like challenged the view, and the guy was like, oh yeah, actually you have got everything else, haven't you? And he was like, yeah,
yeah,
so what does it like? He's not got twat written on his head. Do you know what I
yeah, yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's a bit, like,
yeah.
calm down. He's had some nice artwork done.
I love it, but generally now, like, I mean, I've not had anyone question really. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had anyone really question it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, really, isn't it? Um, I've got one last question for you, and you can answer it whichever way you see fit. And what inspires you, Cameron?
Big question, and you told me not to think into it too much before when we spoke about this. What inspires me? Good art, good music, both inspire me a lot. Film inspires me a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Art, film, those things inspire me. Art, photography, other visual arts really inspire me, and music inspires me a lot. But there's no like, I don't know. I feel like I should have a bigger answer to that.
No,
Lots of things inspire me. I don't know. Like, but yeah, I'd say like art and music are probably the biggest things that inspire me.
they're good answers, because I think a lot of people, a lot of creatives that I ask that question to have lots of little things peppered throughout their life that
Yeah,
inspire them. It's not necessarily one big, like, godly moment.
yeah.
It's like a
I
lot
mean,
of
I mean,
little
it,
bits.
it's quite a difficult question to answer because obviously, like, there are like photographers that inspire me. There are artists that inspire me. There's writers that inspire me. Like off the top of my head, I can think of like three or four people that I could answer right now that are massive inspirations in my life. But to answer that in one like answer is like impossible. I take inspiration from loads of stuff. Just try and intake as much as possible and surround yourself with people that you really want to be like. I think that's the key to inspiration.
Yeah, I think you've nailed that. I think you've
Oh.
nailed it. It's like, it's definitely because of your tattoos and like your eye for photography. It definitely, I kind of thought it might be a visual artist
Yeah,
inspiration.
visual inspiration for sure. And then like I really obviously because of what I do, I really, really buzz off people. And the two people that just off the top of my head here that I just wanted to mention actually, if you're interested, um, are my friend Alice Snape. She used to write. She owned and wrote and edited a magazine called Things in Ink, and did it all off of her own back. A bit like what I do with the Continuous Portrait Project. Sort of started it and built it from the ground up. And now she is, well, she's lots of things, but she does interviews for The Guardian. She's a freelance writer. She's been on Question Time once, I think. And she's a badass woman who just knows exactly what she's about. She loves tattooing. She's curated exhibitions. She's an absolutely a gem of a human. And I get really inspired whenever I think about her story, because it like sort of in some ways mirrors mine a little bit. And then also Perry, who is the owner and editor of Total Tattoo, is a big inspiration to me. He sort of came up, doing bits and bobs and different jobs, and then eventually sort of ended up owning this big tattooing magazine. And whenever I speak to him, I'm like, "Whoa, you're someone that's like been there." And now I work for him, and I get to hang out with him all the time and stuff. So that's really cool. And my girlfriend inspires me as well, because she moved up to Edinburgh with like no real clue what she was going to do, just to try and come and get a tattoo apprenticeship. And she did it, and now she's a successful, great tattooer. So she inspires me a lot as well. It's 3 people as well. There you go.
I think they're just such lovely answers, because I do think it is, you get inspiration infiltrated every day by people you hang around with, and then it goes to like one circle out, and it's people that maybe almost in the clutches of being friends, and it goes to like almost celebrities or artists, and then you've got the read side, and there's so much.
Then at the same time as well, like I'll be walking and like I'll put like Spotify on shuffle, and I'll hear a song, and suddenly like I'll just feel like really fired up. So you could like fully call that inspiration as well. Like I love good music. It's always something that I've been like attached to, or we went to the Tate last year, me and my partner, when we were down in London, and like just walking around the Tate is massively inspiring. There's so much stuff. But I think it's just important to like try and intake as much as you can when you can. It's hard. It's easy to say that, it's difficult I'm in a very lucky position where I work for myself and don't have to go to work every day, and I have time to intake those things. But yeah, visual reference, art, music, good people.
Yeah, they're cracking answers. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast tonight. I've enjoyed it so much, and I've loved chatting tattoos as well. It's nice to chat to someone who's like seen a lot of tattoos and like some incredible stories. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye!